Enfield, Illinois, a small town, quiet, peaceful. Life moved at a slower pace here. People knew their neighbors, children played freely. The biggest worry was usually what was for dinner. The year was 1973. April was ending. Spring was in the air. Little did the residents of Enfield know, something was about to change everything. Enfield was the kind of place where people felt safe. Doors were left unlocked. Children roamed free. The night was filled with the sounds of crickets and the distant barking of dogs. But that peace was about to be shattered. The night of April 25th started like any other. A gentle breeze rustled through the trees. Stars twinkled in the clear night sky. Unbeknownst to the residents of Enfield, a darkness was lurking just beyond the edge of town. Henry McDaniel lived on the edge of town in a place where the hustle and bustle of daily life seemed a distant memory. His small house sat on a large lot, surrounded by an expanse of greenery that provided a serene escape from the world. The backyard bordered a dense forest, a thick wall of trees that seemed to whisper secrets in the wind. Henry was a simple man. He enjoyed his privacy, finding solace in the quiet moments of his day. He spent his days tending his garden, nurturing the plants with care, and his evenings reading, losing himself in the pages of his favorite books. The night of April 25th started like any other for Henry. The sun set, casting long shadows across his yard as he settled into his nightly routine. He ate dinner, a simple meal he had prepared himself, read a few chapters of his book, and went to bed expecting nothing more than a peaceful night's sleep. But around 9:30 p.m., he was awakened by a scratching sound, a noise that pierced the silence of the night. It seemed to be coming from his back porch, a persistent, eerie sound that sent a shiver down his spine.
I thought it was a stray animal, so I went to investigate, hoping to shoo it away and return to my slumber. I opened the door a crack and peeked outside, my heart pounding in my chest. What I saw made my blood run cold. It was a sight that would haunt my dreams for nights to come. Standing on my porch was a creature unlike anything I'd ever seen before, a being that defied explanation. It was about 3.5 feet tall, a small but menacing figure that seemed to radiate an aura of dread. It was gray and had short, stubby arms, limbs that looked almost comically out of place on its otherwise terrifying form. The most terrifying thing was its eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. They were large and round and glowed red in the darkness like two burning coals in the night. I slammed the door shut and ran to call the police. I was terrified, my mind racing with thoughts of what that creature could be. I had lived in Enfield my entire life, a quiet town where nothing out of the ordinary ever happened. I had never seen anything like that before, a creature that seemed to come straight out of a nightmare. I didn't know what it was, my mind struggling to make sense of the impossible. But I knew it wasn't from around here. It was something otherworldly, a visitor from a place beyond our understanding.
The creature that Henry McDaniel saw that night has become known as the Enfield Horror. It was described as being about 3.5 feet tall. It had a greyish colour to its skin, almost like an elephant. It had short, stubby arms that ended in claws. But the most distinctive feature of the creature was its legs. It only had 3 of them, and they were incredibly powerful. Witnesses said that the creature could leap incredible distances. It moved in a strange hopping motion. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness. They seemed to pierce through you. Some people said that the creature had a foul odor. Others said that it made a hissing sound. But everyone agreed on one thing. The Enfield Horror was terrifying. It was like something out of a nightmare, and it was very real. The police arrived at Henry McDaniel's house. They were skeptical. They thought maybe Henry had seen a raccoon or a possum. But then they saw the footprints. They were 3-toed and unlike anything they had ever seen before. The police searched the area, but they couldn't find any trace of the creature.
Word of Henry's encounter spread through Enfield like wildfire. People were scared. They had never believed in monsters before, but now they weren't so sure. Parents kept their children inside. People were afraid to go out at night.
The police increased their patrols. They wanted to reassure the public. They wanted to catch this thing. But the Enfield Horror seemed to have vanished. For a few days, things were quiet in Enfield, but the peace wouldn't last. The Enfield Horror was about to return. Section 5. Whispers and shadows, more sightings emerge. The eerie atmosphere of the forest seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for something to happen. A few days after Henry McDaniel's encounter, 3 young boys were playing in the woods. They were carefree, unaware of the strange events that had recently transpired. They were near the area where Henry had seen the creature. The boys had heard the stories but dismissed them as mere tales to scare children. The boys were throwing rocks into the creek, laughing and joking. The sound of their laughter echoed through the trees, masking the subtle signs of something lurking nearby.
They didn't notice the strange tracks in the mud. These tracks were unlike any animal footprints they had seen before, with an odd shape and size. They didn't see the creature watching them from the trees. Its eyes glowed faintly, blending with the shadows, making it almost invisible.
Suddenly, they heard a noise. It was a sound that didn't belong in the forest, a noise that sent chills down their spines. It was a hissing sound, like air escaping from a tire. The sound was unnatural, almost serpentine, and it seemed to come from all directions. The boys stopped playing and looked around. They couldn't see anything. The forest, which had seemed so familiar, now felt alien and threatening, but the sound was getting closer. The boys were scared. They started to run. Their hearts pounded in their chests as they sprinted through the underbrush.
As they ran, they caught a glimpse of something moving through the trees. It was a fleeting shadow, but enough to confirm their worst fears. It was large and gray, and it was hopping towards them. The creature's movements were unnatural, almost mechanical, as it closed the distance. The boys ran as fast as they could. Their legs burned and their breaths came in ragged gasps, but they didn't dare slow down. They didn't stop running until they reached the edge of the woods. The safety of the open fields felt like a sanctuary compared to the oppressive forest. They burst out of the trees and ran into town. Their faces were pale and their eyes wide with fear, drawing the attention of everyone they passed. They told everyone they saw the monster. The townspeople listened with a mix of skepticism and concern, the boys' terror too genuine to ignore.
More questions than answers. What was the source of these sounds? Was it truly the Enfield Horror or something else entirely? Rick knew his investigation was far from over. Section 7. Searching for answers, theories and speculations. Rick Rainbow's recording of the strange sounds in the woods added fuel to the fire. People were more convinced than ever that the Enfield Horror was real. But what was it? Where did it come from? No one had any answers. There were many theories about the Enfield Horror.
Some people thought it was an escaped kangaroo. Others thought it was a mutated turkey. Some even thought it was an alien from another planet. But none of these theories could fully explain the creature's strange appearance and behavior.
The alien theory was particularly popular. People pointed to the creature's glowing red eyes and its strange hopping gait as evidence of its extraterrestrial origins. Some people even claimed to have seen strange lights in the sky around the time of the sightings. Of course, there was no evidence to support any of these claims. The mystery of the Enfield Horror remained unsolved. Section 8. Enfield's Enduring Mystery, Hysteria or Reality. The sightings of the Enfield Horror eventually stopped. Life in Enfield slowly returned to normal. But the legend of the Enfield Horror lived on. Some people believed that the Enfield Horror was a real creature. They believed that it was something that science cannot explain. Others believed that the Enfield Horror was nothing more than mass hysteria. They believed that people saw what they wanted to see. They believed that the power of suggestion is a powerful thing. The truth is, no one knows for sure what the Enfield Horror was. There is no concrete evidence to prove or disprove its existence. The Enfield Horror remains a mystery. But it is a mystery that continues to fascinate and frighten people to this day. The Enfield Horror is a reminder that there are still things in this world that we do not understand. It is a reminder that the unknown can be both terrifying and exhilarating.